It's certainly not what we have expected in this game from the University of Georgia. Georgia and Auburn tied at halftime 10-10. My prediction was that Georgia would win this game 35-7. But Auburn has come to play. It is on the road, it's in the SEC. As you evaluate the game, as you evaluate the first half, you have to say Georgia has the superior talent, has the superior ability. Um, the interception, Carson Beck's interception, didn't really help a lot. Obviously, turnovers do not help. The defense has not been. The defense has given up some plays, to the Auburn offense. Georgia has the superior team. It's a little disappointing that it's 10-10 at halftime. So, what do you think? What is your opinion as we come here to halftime? Some of the halftime stats will refresh right quick so that we can get the up to date stats. In the first half, Carson Beck was 7 of 13 for 77 yards. He had one interception. Thorne was 4 of 6 for 28 yards. Dejon Edwards had 13 rushes for 13 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. Thorne, the quarterback for Auburn, had 7 carries for 68 yards, had that big run in the first quarter against Georgia. Let's see. Right now, as we go to halftime, total yards, Georgia has 145 total yards in this game, just 145 total yards, one turnover, 8 first downs so far in the first half. Auburn has 173 total yards, and Auburn has 8 first downs so far here in the first half. And Georgia's it's not the game we want to see from the Georgia Bulldogs. So, what do you think? What is your opinion here as we come to halftime? Georgia and Auburn tied 10-10. Craig says hopefully Auburn will beat the brakes off Georgia. Georgia needs a better quarterback. So I guess Craig is hoping that Georgia loses and that will stimulate a change at the quarterback position. Well, yeah, that's a little extreme for us Georgia fans. We certainly don't want Georgia losing at Auburn, but I understand the sentiment. Now I've been getting a lot of texts from a lot of folks about Bobo, his calling in the first half as coordinator, and the play of Carson Beck. Georgia just not sharp, and Georgia fans are used to, I don't know, just a really sharp offense. Now that's not always was not always the case, obviously, for the past 2 years with Carson Beck at quarterback, and there were times if you go back and you honestly evaluate the last 2 years, there were times when Georgia fans were saying, "No, Carson Beck shouldn't be our quarterback. What is Georgia doing? We don't have a shot. We don't have a hope at being the team that we want to be and winning the SEC and the national championship." But it kind of, with this first half with Georgia 10 and Auburn 10, that's going to kind of stoke the fires that some folks have with their evaluation of Carson Beck as not being the quarterback that Georgia needs, and also the evaluation that many people have of Mike Bobo and his calling as offensive coordinator. So it's 10-10 here at halftime. So what do you think? What is your impression? What is your comment? What do you think about the first half? My evaluation is, when Georgia had the turnover, gave up the long run at the beginning of the game to the quarterback for Auburn. I thought it might be a long first half. Now Georgia, if Georgia can hang in there, Georgia has the better team. Georgia has the better personnel. That is obvious. And hopefully, as the second half goes, Georgia will begin to grind down Auburn. But Auburn has the fans. They have the home field advantage. They to some extent have the momentum, and they have hope. When a team has hope, you can't give them hope, especially on their home field and especially in the SEC. So Auburn has hope. It's going to be interesting to see what happens now with Georgia in the second half. Robert says you can't turn it over, seeing no one on the left side of the field defending at times. Yeah, and Georgia, I think last year, Georgia gave up an average of 77 yards a game, and I think in the first half, or the first quarter rather, Georgia had given up 110 yards rushing, in that first quarter. Yeah, it's kind of a wild scene at Auburn, of course. The stadium jam-packed, the crowd is loud. Now the stadium has hope, and now the team has hope against Georgia. Georgia, to my honest evaluation, not playing like a number one team in the country. So maybe it's time to just forget that. Forget the fact that Georgia is the number one team in the country. Just forget the polls. Just forget all that and just concentrate on the next game, on this game and in the games to come. Just win them. The old cliche is, and it's a cliche because it's true, win them one game at a time. So it's not and again, the start for Georgia is not what you want to see. Georgia struggling every game, it seems, to get off to a fast start. And again, Georgia not off to a fast start in this game, fell behind 10-0, able to come back and tie the game 10-10. Timothy says Auburn done forgot they're trying to win this game. Yeah, Auburn's done forgot the fact that Georgia's the number one team in the country. And they are trying to win this game. I agree with you 100%, Timothy. So it's time just to forget all that. Forget the fact back-to-back national championships. Forget the fact that you're number one in the country. Quit trying to defend that high ground. Quit trying to defend that ground and just play the game. And just play as a hungry team. And, Kirby Smart said last year, we will not be hunted. We will be the hunter. Well, at the moment, it appears as if Georgia has the attitude, the team has the attitude that they are the hunted, and they're not doing much hunting. Let's see. Let's see what will happen. Timothy says it is a fun game for us. Yeah, it is. It's fun, but it's a whole lot more fun when you're up like 3 touchdowns or something. Let's see. Brandon says Bobo has got to go. This is the same offense under Rick. We brought in 2 receivers that were top in the SEC and nothing. Okay. So, Brandon, I feel it. I understand that. Yeah, and Coach Rick or Coach Smart made the comment a couple of weeks ago that Georgia was running the same offense that they were running under Monken, and not to contradict the coach, but it just doesn't look that way. It doesn't seem that way. It doesn't appear that way. Now the personnel is different. So here's what we got to do now. We got to get together with the team and say, look, guys, forget it. Forget you're not number one in the country. You are not the number one team in the country. You are not the 2-time defending national champions. That's in the past. You're a different team. You're a team that needs to be hungry. You're a team that needs to assert yourself. You're a team that needs to establish yourself. Carson, you need to settle down and be the quarterback that you can be. You have the tools. You have the ability to do it. Now do it. And defense, what in the world? You pride yourself in being the best defense in the SEC and the best defense in the country. You're 112th in the country in scoring defense. I mean, it's time. It's time for a come to the Lord meeting, I think, with the University of Georgia and with the fans too. We just need to say, okay, we're going to quit hyping this thing. We're going to quit living in the past, and we've got to live in the present. This is a completely different team, and so let's go. Brandon says it's the same with Bobo, run, pass, outside runs, running backs going outside. We don't utilize that. So, to be honest with you, for me, and I'm not an expert in this stuff, I'm just an observer and I enjoy it. And I try to halfway study it to try to understand things. It does not appear to be the same offense that Georgia has run for the past couple of years, but we'll see what happens in the second half. Checking some of the halftime scores, Michigan is taking it to Nebraska 28-0. If something doesn't change here at Auburn, Georgia may not be literally the number one team in the country next week. It could be Michigan, very much so. Kansas is hanging tough with Texas. That score is Texas 13 and Kansas 7. Missouri is having a pretty tough time with Vanderbilt. That's in the second quarter, 10-7. Let's see. We have some of the other games going on. Just checking, trying to find some other scores of interest. And don't really see any at the moment that would be of interest to us. So, what do you think again of the halftime statistics? You have Carson Beck, 7 of 13, 77 yards, 1 interception. Edwards is the leading rusher for Georgia. And so there you go. Georgia has only 77 yards passing in the first half. And let's see, first downs, Georgia has 8. Auburn has 8. Georgia has 68 rushing yards. Auburn has 145 rushing yards. Georgia has 1 turnover, and Auburn has yet to turn the ball over. So Sandy says, I think we play better when we're not more number one. It makes them more hungry to win. I think so. I think there's a psychology about that. I think you get to a place or get to a point. I think so, Sandy. I think there's something to that. Bill said, I'd like to see more short passes in the flat, open up the middle. Take a shot, indeed. How do we feel about playing Kentucky after watching that game today? Kentucky's a very good football team. And Kentucky really, really took it to Florida today. So I think, if Georgia doesn't come out in the second half and really kind of lay it on Auburn in the second half and really kind of go at it and, have some good separation against Auburn, I think there's going to be, and God forbid if Georgia comes out and loses this game in the second half and loses the game, there's going to be some serious, I think, reevaluation for Georgia in a lot of areas. So listen, we're going to get back to the game. We're going to get back to the second half. Still confident that Georgia is going to win this game, but it's a hostile environment. The Auburn crowd is doing a great job of, supporting their team. It's loud. You're on the road in the SEC. Coach Freeze is, pumping up his team. He's a good coach. And so Coach Freeze, will have Auburn ready to go. So Georgia's got to be ready. You just want to see that Georgia toughness on offense and defense in the second half. You really do. Yeah, I don't know if we've seen that, to be honest with you, in this season. I don't know if Brandon wants Beck to throw. Hey, he does everything else. So why not? And Katie says we need some serious reevaluation eventually. Roberts has got to score the first possession. Let's hope they do. All right, guys, we'll be back with you at the end of the game, hopefully talking about a Georgia victory. And we'll talk about, hopefully at that time, Georgia winning and what's next for the University of Georgia. All right. See you at the